And tonight I have this awesome gentleman sitting right next to me, longtime activist in Dearborn, Michigan, a great gentleman and a great humanitarian. I'm honored to have Mr. Wissam Charafeddine. Greetings, brother.
Thank you. Greetings.
Very much welcome, and thank you for having us here. Wissam, I wanted to ask you, and I want you to look into the camera and tell the folks here in Michigan, what motivated you to get started in the Jill Stein campaign and in this cause right now?
So I have to start a few years back when I first got my citizenship, and I was a young man, and I reached the age of voting. I was very excited. I was very excited about being an American. I was very excited about practicing democracy, and I went and I researched what parties there are for me that I can join, because it's something that where I was born and grew up, I had no option of. There was no option for me to participate in politics. There was no option for anyone to voice their opinion in politics. There was no elections whatsoever. The country was a monarchy, and there is no elections whatsoever in any level, from high school to government. Everything is by appointment, and basically a family ruled the country. And not only that, we didn't even have the right for assembly. If I want to gather my friends to speak to them or organize, we are not allowed to do that without a specific permit from a specific ministry. So I was very excited about being an American. I loved being an American. I loved the American Revolution, the Constitution, the founding documents, the history of the country, how it was founded, the challenges, the atrocities that took place, and the always effort to self-correct and towards
a more perfect union.
Towards a more we always are looking back at our history and trying to self-correct and move forward. So when I researched the parties there weren't much to research, So I found the Green Party, and I joined basically, in Michigan, there doesn't require you to join a party, but I started voting Green Party because it matched my values, it matched my ethics, it matched my priorities, it matched my, the things that I really care about. So unfortunately, it had not much movement in the country. Except maybe when Ralph Nader, ran, it was a little bit, gained a little bit of traction. But this has been my stance, my personal conviction, and I wasn't involved really in politics. I'm more involved in the cultural scene, in the educational scene. I am active more for human rights, and I wasn't really active politically. Until we got to a point, and I've been voting, Dr. Jill Stein, I think the only time I voted not green is when I voted for Obama the first time, and I learned from that mistake. So, the drone president.
Yes, sir.
So, after 2023, October of 2023, and the genocide that started to take place in the Middle East, I didn't really imagine that we are going to get to this point in history, where a genocide is taking place in front of our eyes. We're watching it day by day, tear by tear, cry by cry, child by child. It was devastating. It was traumatizing, and the silence of the government for this atrocity, and then the complete backing up and funding and supporting this genocide basically made me totally believe that our democracy is kind of hijacked.
Yes,
we have left it, this duopoly, to brew by itself under the conditions of corporate money and lobbying and political pressures from super PACs and all these lobbies, that it has gotten to a point where it's no longer representing the will of the people. It was shocking to me when a survey of American people, you get 62%, 63% wanting a ceasefire, and then a vote in the Senate would have 100 senators opposing to ceasefire. How can you have 0% in the Senate with ceasefire and 63% in the streets. There must be something broken in the system. And now the silence over this duopoly. People, whenever they're living under conditions that cause atrocities, they're usually so much conditioned that they don't see it the way it is. And then later in history, retrospectively, they start seeing the tremendous, wrong that they were living under. So I think that this fascism that we are living under, that is discussed with the shape of two parties, because they are aligned in terms of the agenda on 95% of the matters, and they are both sponsored by AIPAC, and they are both sponsored by the big corporate donors and the military industry. So how can you have representation of the people when two parties are totally aligned? So it's just like two versions to give an illusion of democracy. This is what I started to believe in, and then I had the urgency of working with the Green Party to really break the duopoly finally, because now, we are paying for it heavily. We have always been paying for it, but now we're paying for it heavily, and it can reach to our own families and to our own children, because you know what, if the word is silence about a genocide that's taking place anywhere in the world, then they can be silent about a genocide that's taking place here. So, and genocide can take different shapes. It doesn't have to be, it can be a forceful removal of people. It can be different shapes and forms. So I decided to, as an ethical obligation to introduce people to the Green Party, to share with them, which is a grassroots effort. And I found myself being an active, really. I didn't have it planned or anything. I just found myself working out of my conscience, and I found myself here. And I still don't have any intention to work with politics. I'm just going to act upon my conscience and always advocate to what is right. It is time for us to break this duopoly. It is over. It is more difficult. It is much easier to conform to the norms that are set for you and to the mainstream ways. But when there is a challenge like this, where you actually have to work to actually defend the American values of equality and liberalism and freedom, etc., then then it requires an effort. And there are people who have done this effort before, and now it's our turn to do this effort. It is our duty. It's our patriotic duty. It is our American duty. So I see it as what I owe the Constitution, is to fight against this duopoly and self-correct America to something that is more representative of the people. I mean, the revolution from the first hand, it was because of taxation without representation. We are living taxation without representation 100-folds now. So I mean, this is really my motivation, and our hope is that the new generation is completely dissatisfied with the system. 63% according to Gallup, and this Gen Z will be the majority of voters in 2030. So the 2032 elections will be totally different from what we're seeing right now. If you want to predict how it's going to be, look at the universities. And do we want to be part of that history? Do we want to be some of the people who have set the platform for the next generation to really change the world towards planetarianism and towards caring about the world as a globe?
Okay, great talking point, Wissam. I was a little distracted there, but I wanted to piggyback on something that you were talking about there too, and that's the historical nature of the time that we're in now. Like, for example, you mentioned the American Revolution, okay? Just to give a little historical context from the African American perspective, after the Civil War, after Lincoln, by executive order, signs the Emancipation Proclamation, 100% of the black community, we vote Republican for the first 100 so years. But after that, and the federal troops are pulled from the South, and then the South starts to terrorize blacks living in the South. So now they live up under another 100 years of Jim Crow and the lynchings and that whole thing, up until about the 60s and Dr. Martin Luther King's time, where he galvanizes the civil rights movement, and then the 64 Voting Rights Act, and then we find that blacks are shifting over to the Democratic Party. Let's juxtapose that now to 2024. We've lived under the first president of Obama, and he gets 95% of the black vote in 2008. When you were part of that crew, I was fortunate. I didn't vote for Obama. I voted for Dr. Cynthia McKinney, the Green Party candidate then, okay? But where I'm going with this is that I see, just like you see the synergy now, as you were talking about, a shift away from those two, what I call their vestiges of the old slave America. Both parties are, the Democratic and Republican Party. And now here in the 21st century, where we have technology like the internet, the microchip, we have all this information like a Green New Deal and UBI, and what we at the grassroots level are formulating, I see an energy shift, and you tell me whether you agree with that, going into 26, 28, as you were talking about with young people, where we see them galvanizing around things like freedom of speech on the university level in protest of what's happening in Palestine and Gaza, issues like universal basic income for the working classes, excuse me, and in my case with the African American community around reparations. So your thoughts about the synergy, what would you say to folks in Michigan, because this is a Michigan-based program, where the energy, where they see longtime human rights activists like yourself putting in the work, people like myself, what would you say to them as far as the Green Party to encourage them to say, well, hey, if you're looking for a place to land, why the Green Party and why now?
To add to what you said, Brother Shabazz, is also in terms of historical perspective, when they first wrote the Declaration of Independence, there was the abolition of slavery was in the first drafts, and that's what Thomas Paine wanted, and that's what Benjamin Franklin wanted. But the aristocracy of that time worked against it, and they had to give in to make things work. They had to compromise to make it work as a first stage, and then try to keep working on it. And the point of that is, this American project is a project in progress. It always requires more work
towards a more perfect union.
Towards a more perfect union. Although the word perfect, I like progress forever.
Right.
So, it is, today we live in a world where globalization have made the world a small village. And the challenges that we are facing as a globe are global challenges. We no longer can separate them and build walls between them. If you bomb a country, then the refugees will trickle down to all the other countries. If you start a fire, then the smoke will go and cross your borders, and you're going to breathe it. If you do global warming, then the Caribbean will get the storm. We no longer can contain our crisis. We no longer can contain our problems. So we also have to have solutions that are global. So this concept of America first, or this country first, or that country first, is totally against the nature of the world that we live in today. Today we cannot have the best interests of America without tackling global issues. And we have made some important steps towards that after World War II, the catastrophe that we paid for it, tens of millions of lives, after tackling the ideas of nationalism and fascism and white supremacy and etc. And we supposedly should have learned from that. And we've had the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we had the Geneva Convention, and we kept working on things until we got to the Paris Accord. And now there is a retreat. There is going backwards not only to pre-World War II, going backward to pre-Enlightenment, because we're totally destroying the idea of liberalism, of the sanctity of a human life, etc. I think we should move forward. We should move forward into planetarianism, into considering a more global balanced approach to our problems and solution, to take a true American leadership in the world. And the only platform that addresses this is the Green Party. And to tackle our problems heads on, you know, the reparation for slavery, the reparation for many of the things that has been committed in the name of the United States throughout history. Now, you know, how is that done? That can be done in so many different ways depending on the capabilities. It's not one way or the other, but just the concept of moving in that direction, of realizing our mistakes and correcting them and wanting to be in a better place and be closer to the ideals that we set for ourselves in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution. This is really, for me, being a Green Party activist is truly being an American trying to move forward in a more global perspective.
Basically, what you're saying is a more multipolar world. For example, where we live with China and Russia, and we all share the resources of this planet, and I think we can start to de-escalate things like the nuclear proliferation of bombs and wars, and to decrease that kind of tension. And as you said, address domestically some of the issues that have been long-standing in our country and festering and moving towards that direction. So again, Brother Wissam, I want to say thank you so much. I know we can probably catch you more a lot here going on. What a lot of folks here of the Michigan Greens want you to know, this gentleman right here has been front and center behind the Stein campaign since day one, and on a lot of other issues. And we here in Michigan are very, very, very fortunate to call him one of our own. So, Brother Wissam, thank you and your wife for your thanks for the work that you do so much. And we'll look forward to talking to you in the future, brother. Thank you. God bless.